They silent distress. Commander Saul Vex stared at the emergency transmission controls, his four-fingered hand hovering over the broadcast button. The command center of Kilari Prime's last defensive outpost hummed with the tension of unspoken fear. Outside, the orbital bombardment had momentarily ceased, leaving an eerie silence that felt more threatening than the explosions. "You can't seriously be considering this," Strategic Advisor Nema said, her luminescent skin pulsing with stress patterns. "The humans? After everything." Saul's secondary eyes blinked rapidly while his primary pair remained fixed on the control panel. The Kilari Confederacy, once proud stewards of 16 systems, had been reduced to a single besieged planet in a matter of weeks. The Vorax collective had swept through their territory with ruthless efficiency, consuming everything in their path. "We've lost contact with the southern continent," Lieutenant Call reported, his voice hollow. "Refugee transports from the eastern archipelago report complete destruction of coastal settlements. The orbital defense grid is at 12% capacity," weapons specialist Trell added. "Another barrage like the last one will collapse our remaining shields." Saul's gill flaps fluttered as he took a deep breath. "What choice do we have? The Galactic Council has abandoned us. The Ultharian Empire claims logistical difficulties prevent aid. Even our supposed allies in the Proxima Coalition have gone silent." "But the humans," Naima insisted, her voice dropping to a whisper. "They've isolated themselves for nearly 2 decades. Not since the Rigel incident." "I know what happened at Rigel," Saul cut her off. The entire command center fell silent at the mention of that infamous battle. Even the younger officers who had been mere children when it occurred knew the stories. How the human fleet had responded to a minor border dispute with overwhelming force. How they had demonstrated weapons technologies that violated several Galactic Council prohibitions. How, when censured, they had simply withdrawn from galactic affairs entirely, taking their innovations and their unpredictability with them. "Senior Tactician Vrel," Saul called out. "Projected survival rate if we face the next Vorax assault alone." The wizened Kilari didn't need to consult his instruments. "Under 12%, Commander. And that's being optimistic." Saul nodded grimly. "And if we had assistance, even unconventional assistance?" Vrel's skin darkened thoughtfully. "Depending on response time and capabilities, it could make a difference." Another impact rocked the command center, sending crystalline dust raining from the ceiling. Warning lights flashed across every console. "They're beginning another bombardment cycle," Call announced, fear evident in his voice. "Targeting our remaining power generators." Saul made his decision. He pressed the broadcast button. "This is Commander Saul Vex of the Kilari Confederacy to any Earth vessels within range. Kilari Prime is under attack by Vorax forces. Our defenses are failing. Civilian casualties are catastrophic. We request immediate assistance under Article 7 of the Pre-Isolation Mutual Defense Treaty." He paused, then added, "The Kilari remember our debt to humanity. We have not forgotten what we owe you." He released the button, and the transmission shot out into the void, encoded on frequencies that most species had long abandoned. Frequencies that, according to intelligence reports, human vessels still monitored. "Now we wait," Saul said, turning to face his officers. None would meet his eyes. "They won't come," Naima said softly, "even if they receive the message. They've made it abundantly clear they want nothing to do with galactic politics." "Perhaps," Saul admitted, "but the Kilarian humans have history that predates the Rigel incident. My grandparent was there when our scientists helped them survive the Terran plague, before any other species would even make contact with them." The command center shook violently as another barrage struck their shields. Power fluctuated, plunging them into darkness for 3 terrifying seconds before emergency systems engage. "Shield integrity at 7%, Trell reported. 2 more direct hits and we're exposed." "Evacuation status," Saul demanded. 63% of remaining civilians are in underground shelters," Call answered. "The rest won't make it in time." Saul felt the weight of command as never before. Millions of lives, the last of his species, hanging in the balance. Their military had been decimated in the initial assault. Their fleet, never large to begin with, reduced to a handful of outdated vessels making desperate evacuation runs. And now their final hope rested with a species that had turned its back on the galaxy. "Commander," the shout came from the sensor station, where young Ensign Levery had leaped to her feet. "I'm detecting anomalies at the system's edge." "Vorax reinforcements?" Saul asked, his heart sinking. "No, sir. These readings, they don't match any known warp signature in our database." The main view screen flickered to life, showing the outer reaches of the Kilari system. At first, there was nothing but empty space. Then, like tears in the fabric of reality itself, dozens of rifts appeared, not the familiar blue-white of standard warp technology, but swirling vortices of crimson and gold that seemed to bend light around them. "What in the seven moons?" Nima breathed. From the rifts emerged ships unlike any Saul had seen before. They didn't glide into real space with the elegant deceleration of Galactic Council vessels or the brute force approach of Vorax ships. Instead, they tore their way in, as if reality itself was an obstacle to be overcome rather than a law to be respected. The lead vessel dwarfed anything in the Kilari defense fleet. Its hull was midnight black, absorbing rather than reflecting light, making it difficult to discern its true dimensions. Angular protrusions that could only be weapons platforms jutted from its surface at seemingly random intervals. At its bow, a massive emblem glowed with internal light. A stylized Earth, wrapped in protective hands. "It's them," Saul whispered, not daring to believe. The humans actually came. The communications array chimed with an incoming transmission. With shaking hands, Saul accepted it. The view screen changed to show a human bridge that was surprisingly austere. At its center stood a woman with dark skin and close-cropped silver hair, wearing a uniform of deep blue with minimal insignia. Her expression was calm but alert, her posture relaxed yet ready. Behind her, bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency, but Saul couldn't help noticing they were all armed, even on their own vessel. "Commander Vex, I presume?" the human asked, her voice carrying the distinctive harmonics of a translator working on human vocal patterns. "Captain Alina Reyes of the Earth Sentinel Fleet. Sorry for the delay. We had to calculate a precision jump to avoid detection." Saul found his voice with difficulty. "Captain Reyes, on behalf of the Kilari people, I extend our deepest gratitude for—" A proximity alarm cut him off as the Vorax fleet, previously focused on bombardment, changed formation to address this new threat. "Apologies for interrupting, Commander, but it appears we have company," Reyes said, her expression hardening. "We've analyzed your situation. Our fleet will engage the Vorax vessels while our support ships begin evacuation procedures for your civilians. Please transmit shelter coordinates to my tactical officer." "Captain," Saul began hesitantly, "the Vorax outnumber even your impressive fleet. Their ships are specifically designed for adaptation during combat. They will analyze your weapons and develop countermeasures rapidly." For the first time, Captain Rice smiled. It was not a reassuring expression. "Let them try, Commander. The Vorax have never faced humanity before. They're about to discover that was a significant oversight." The transmission ended, leaving the Kilari Command Center in stunned silence. On the view screen, the human vessels moved into formation with a precision that bordered on the artistic, spreading out to create a barrier between the Vorax fleet and Kilari Prime. "They're outnumbered almost 3-1, Nima observed quietly. Senior Tactician Vrel studied his displays with all four eyes wide. "Yes," he agreed, "but I'm detecting energy readings from their vessels that shouldn't be possible with known physics. Whatever they're about to do." He trailed off, shaking his head in disbelief. The Vorax, seemingly unconcerned by this new arrival, launched their next attack wave. Hundreds of missiles streaked toward the human formation, followed by the distinctive green beam weapons that had devastated the Kilari defense grid. The humans didn't attempt to evade. Instead, the lead vessels, including Captain Ray's enormous flagship, simply absorbed the assault. Where Killari shields would have flared visible with the strain, the human vessels showed no reaction at all. It was as if the attacks had vanished into the void. Then, as one, the human fleet responded. From their vessels erupted weapons that defy classification. Some fired brilliant white beams that didn't so much damage Vorax ships as simply erase portions of them from existence. Others launched what appeared to be ordinary missiles until they suddenly split into hundreds of smaller projectiles, each homing in on a different target with impossible precision. Still others emitted no visible attack at all. Yet Vorax vessels in their vicinity began to drift, powerless. By the first waters, Lieutenant Call whispered, a prayer from Killari ancient religion that Saul hadn't heard in years. The view screen flickered as Captain Rice appeared again, this time in a smaller window while the battle continued to display in the background. She was standing now, her calm demeanor replaced by focused intensity. Commander Vex, we need your cooperation. Our ground teams are deploying to your shelter locations to begin evacuation. Please inform your people not to resist the humans in environmental suits. We mean no harm, but standard protocols must be followed. Of course, Captain. I'll send the order immediately. Saul hesitated, then asked the question burning in his mind. Captain Rice, why did you come? After so many years of isolation. Rhea's expression softened momentarily. The Killari were there for Earth when no one else would be. We haven't forgotten. Her voice hardened again. And the Vorax have been on our watch list for some time. This gives us a legitimate reason to deal with them. With that cryptic statement, she ended the transmission. Outside the command center windows, the first human shuttles were already descending toward the planet's surface, moving with a speed and maneuverability that defied conventional design limitations. Above in orbit, the battle had already turned decisively. The Vorax, for perhaps the first time in their collective history, were retreating. Saul felt something he had not experienced in weeks. Hope. Send word to all remaining Killari forces, he ordered. Cooperate fully with the human evacuation teams, and prepare a data package of everything we know about the Vorax. I suspect Captain Rice will want it. As his officers rushed to comply, Saul looked back at the view screen where human vessels were now actively pursuing the fleeing Vorax. The galaxy had forgotten why humans had been feared. The Vorax were receiving a painful reminder. The humans had come. Against all expectations, despite years of isolation, they had answered the call of an old debt. And now, watching their incomprehensible technology in action, Saul understood why the Galactic Council had been so quick to censure them after the Rigel incident. They weren't afraid of human aggression. They were afraid of human potential. DFIANC Unleashed. Captain Alina Reyes stood on the bridge of the HSS Defiant, watching the holographic display as her fleet systematically dismantled the Vorax forces. 20 years of self-imposed isolation had given Earth's military-industrial complex time to develop technologies that would have horrified the Galactic Council, technologies born from necessity after humanity's near extinction during the Terran Plague. Battle Group Theta reports all hostiles neutralized in their sector, her XO, Commander Jackson, reported. Epsilon Group has disabled the Vorax command vessel and boarding teams are securing it now. Civilian evacuation status, Elena asked, her eyes still fixed on the tactical display. Proceeding according to plan. 60% of shelters have been cleared. Estimated completion in 43 minutes. Elena nodded, satisfaction warming her chest despite her professional demeanor. The Sentinel Fleet, Earth's most advanced battle group, typically hidden at the edge of Sol's system, had performed exactly as designed. The Vorax had been caught completely unprepared for humanity's technological leap. A communication request flashed on her personal display. Put Commander Vex through, she ordered. The Killari commander appeared on screen, his alien features registering what Elena had learned to recognize as stunned disbelief. Captain Reyes, he began, his translator struggling with the emotion in his voice. "I just received reports from our evacuation centers. Your medical teams are treating injuries our own doctors couldn't address. How is this possible?" Elena allowed herself a small smile. 20 years of isolation forced us to become self-sufficient, Commander. Medical technology was a priority after the plague. The Galactic Council claimed your withdrawal was due to wounded pride after the Rigel censure, Vex said carefully. The Galactic Council, Elena replied, her voice cooling, has always excelled at revising history to suit their narrative. Our withdrawal was strategic, not emotional. Before Vex could respond, Commander Jackson interrupted. "Captain, boarding Team Alpha has secured the Vorax command ship's data core. Initial analysis confirms our suspicions." Elena's expression hardened. "Transmit the relevant portions to Commander Vex. He deserves to know." Moments later, Vex's compound eyes widened as he read the information appearing on his own screens. This can't be accurate. The Vorax attack on Kilari Prime was specifically ordered by the Galactic Council's Security Directorate. Not just ordered, Elena corrected, but equipped and guided. The Vorax are effective predators, but they lack the technological sophistication for targeted planetary assaults. The weapons they used against your defense grid, Council technology. She paused, letting that sink in. The question is, why would the Council want Kilari Prime destroyed? Vex's skin paled to a sickly blue. The preservation vaults, our ancestors' genetic repository. It contains unmodified DNA from before our species' adaptation to space travel. And the Kilari were the only species to share their preservation technology with Earth after the plague. Elena finished for him. Technology that allowed us to restore our damaged genetic code without becoming dependent on Council assistance. Understanding dawned in Vex's eyes. They wanted to eliminate any record of that technology, to ensure no other species could follow our example, or yours. Precisely. The Galactic Council maintains its power through controlled dependency. Species that achieve true self-sufficiency become problematic. A proximity alert sounded, and Elena glanced at the tactical display. "It appears we have company. 3 Council oversight vessels have just entered the system, right on schedule." The Kilari commander looked alarmed. "Captain, your fleet has performed admirably, but Council oversight vessels are in a different category entirely. They carry weaponry reserved exclusively for the Council's direct representatives." Elena's smile returned, sharper this time. "We're counting on it, Commander. Please, continue evacuation procedures and leave the Council representatives to us." With a gesture, she ended the transmission and turned to her bridge crew. "Battle stations, activate the reflection protocol." As klaxons sounded throughout the ship, Elena moved to the center of the bridge where a larger holographic display showed the approaching Council vessels. Massive and gleaming, they represented the pinnacle of Council technology, or so the Council believed. "Open a channel to the lead vessel," she ordered. The face that appeared on screen belonged to Xanthi, one of the founding species of the Galactic Council. Tall and willowy with luminescent skin similar to the Kilari, but lacking their compound eyes, Overseer Thaylun exuded the absolute confidence of someone unused to being questioned. "Human vessel," the Overseer began without preamble, "you are in violation of Council Directive 5593, prohibiting unauthorized military action in Council-governed space. You will power down your weapon systems and prepare for boarding." Elena didn't bother hiding her amusement. "Overseer Lun, your timing is impeccable. We've just finished securing evidence of the Council's direct involvement in the attempted genocide of the Kilari species. Would you care to comment before we proceed?" The Overseer's composure faltered momentarily before settling into diplomatic rigidity. "These are internal Council security matters beyond human jurisdiction. Your interference is noted and will be addressed appropriately. Power down your systems immediately." "I'm afraid I can't do that," Elena replied. "Earth Sentinel Protocol authorizes me to intervene in cases of imminent extinction-level events, particularly when they involve species with historical ties to humanity. This is your final warning. Lun hissed, abandoning pretense. The vessels I command carry weapons technologies your primitive understanding of physics cannot comprehend. About that, Elena said, nodding to her tactical officer. We've been monitoring Council weapons development for the past 20 years. Allow me to demonstrate our comprehension. The tactical officer activated a sequence, and suddenly small, previously invisible satellites positioned around Elena's fleet activated simultaneously. The energy signatures of the Council vessels were instantly mapped, analyzed, and replicated. What is this? The Overseer demanded as warning signals flashed across his own bridge. We call it the Reflection Protocol. Elena explained calmly. Your vessels are currently being scanned at the quantum level. Any weapon you activate against us will be instantly analyzed, replicated, and returned in kind. Additionally, I should mention that we've transmitted all evidence of the Council's actions against the Kilari to every species in the galactic community, along with the technical specifications of our reflection technology. The color drained from the Overseer's face. You can't do this. The Council maintains peace through controlled technological advancement. If every species gains access to unrestricted technology. The color drained from the Overseer's face. You can't do this. The Council maintains peace through controlled technological advancement. If every species gains access to unrestricted technology. Then the Council's power disappears. Elena finished for him. But perhaps a galactic community built on genuine cooperation rather than enforced dependency might be worth exploring. She turned to her communications officer. Are the transmissions complete? Yes, Captain. We're already receiving acknowledgments from 17 species governments. Elena looked back at the increasingly agitated Overseer. You have a choice, Overseer Lun. You can fire upon us and discover firsthand how well we understand your incomprehensible weapons technology, or you can return to the Council and explain that the paradigm has shifted. For a long moment, the Overseer said nothing. Finally, with visible restraint, he replied, This is not over, Captain Reyes. On that, Elena agreed. We are in complete agreement. The transmission ended, and the Council vessels began a slow retreat from the system. Commander Jackson approached Elena's position. They'll be back, Captain, with more ships. Of course they will, Elena acknowledged. But not today. And by the time they return, the information we've released will have spread throughout the galaxy. Their monopoly on advanced technology is finished. She turned her attention back to the evacuation efforts visible in another section of the display. How many Kilari remain on the surface? Fewer than 10,000, Captain. The last transports are loading now. Elena nodded. Once evacuation is complete, I want a team to secure the genetic repository vaults. They represent the Kilari's future. And what about the Kilari themselves? Jackson asked. Where will they go? Elena's expression softened slightly. We've prepared settlement zones in the Proxima Centauri system. Uninhabited planets with compatible ecosystems. They'll have Earth's protection while they rebuild. That won't sit well with the Council. The Council's opinion is no longer our primary concern, Elena replied. Humanity hid long enough. It's time we help build a galactic community that values independence alongside cooperation. On the view screen, the last Kilari transports were lifting off from the planet's surface, escorted by human fighters. Commander Vex had requested permission to join Elena on the Defiant to coordinate his people's relocation. As if summoned by her thoughts, Vex's voice came through the communication system. Captain Reyes, I've just reviewed the full data package your teams recovered from the Vorax command ship. The Council's plans, they weren't limited to the Kilari. There are operational details for actions against 12 other species who've shown signs of technological independence. Send the list to my private terminal, Elena ordered. We'll need to contact each of them discreetly. Captain, Vex continued, his voice troubled. There's something else. According to these files, the Council has maintained a secret observation post near Sol's system for years. They've been studying your technological development, despite the isolation protocols. Elena exchanged glances with Commander Jackson. We're aware, Commander Vex. In fact, we've been feeding them carefully curated information. Everything they think they know about our capabilities is precisely what we wanted them to know. A surprised silence followed before Vex responded. You're several steps ahead of everyone, aren't you, Captain? We had to be, Elena said simply. 20 years ago, humanity nearly perished from a plague that, according to files we've since obtained, was deliberately introduced to prevent our technological advancement. The Kilari were the only species who helped us, despite council prohibitions. We've never forgotten that debt. Then the Rigel incident, Vex began, was staged to give us a reason to withdraw from galactic politics without raising suspicion. Elena confirmed. We needed time to develop technologies that couldn't be compromised, studied, or controlled by the Council. As the final Kilari transport docked with one of the human evacuation vessels, Elena allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. The plan developed by Earth's Strategic Command 2 decades ago had finally come to fruition. Humanity had evolved from a quarantined, plague-ridden species on the verge of extinction to perhaps the most technologically advanced civilization in the galaxy, all while the Council believed they were containing a primitive volatile race. Captain, her tactical officer called out, we're detecting quantum fluctuations consistent with long-range Council communications. They appear to be mobilizing a larger response fleet. As expected, Elena acknowledged. Prepare for Phase 2. It's time the galaxy understood that humanity's isolation was never about fear or weakness. She turned to address her entire bridge crew. It was preparation. Across the stars, encrypted transmissions from Earth's Sentinel fleet reached governments and leaders who had long suffered under the Council's technological suppression. Attached to each message was a simple statement. The era of enforced dependency is over. Humanity stands ready to assist those who seek true independence. And with that declaration, the balance of power that had defined galactic politics for millennia began its inevitable transformation. The humans had not just come to save the Kilari. They had come to change the galaxy.